Yay! Okay. I think we are live. I'm not exactly sure, so let's double check. Awesome. Okay, so we are live. So this is the 5th installment of GrowSeattle. Welcome to the Grow Lab. Today we have quite a few things because things are starting to build up as we start projects and continue them. So the first thing that we're going to do today is we're going to do the mushroom log. So again, this is a mushroom log that I just bought at our local QFC, which is a grocery store just down the road. This mushroom log is a Shiitake mushroom log, and I believe that it's basically just compressed sawdust that's been inoculated with mushroom spores, or probably probably just the mycelium. The mycelium then is able to make its way throughout the log. That's why you can see these white spots all over the log. And the way that they inoculate the log initially is they make drill holes, and then they fill it with the inoculated sawdust, and then it's able to inoculate the whole log. So a couple days ago we activated this log by dipping it in this bucket of water, and yesterday we fed it, and today we're going to feed it again. So I think we're maybe about down to 3 gallons of water. We started out with 4, but I've been using some of the water to feed the plants and to help amend the potting soil that we put together. That particular batch I put together yesterday. So if you want to go back and see the show. I'm just going to soak this for about 10 seconds on each end. And just let it drip off. You're supposed to thin this log out if there are mushrooms that are too close to each other, so that the mushrooms can fully develop. And the mushrooms that you pick off during that process of thinning are edible. You can eat them, and they are super delicious right off the log. They're amazing flavor, just amazing. Different texture too, because the ones that you get at the grocery store that are pre-cut lose some of that moisture. But then also you don't want to put mushrooms necessarily in water when you bring them home, because then they're kind of tough. But these are not tough. They're tender, but also really plump. So now that we've done that, I'm going to move this bucket. And I guess I'll just leave that there for right now. I'm going to take this lid off. The only reason I had this particular lid on this bottom bucket is just so I can put the other bucket on top for demonstration purposes. Otherwise, it just has these towels on top. The towels are double. They're folded in half. I don't know if that necessarily makes a difference. So maybe that's an experiment that I'll do down the line. Obviously, if you have it folded in half, the airflow is going to be slightly a little bit less. So I have a dried orange peel, and I decided to dry it just because I feel like maybe some of the citric acid will kind of dissipate. Then these are just used coffee grounds from yesterday's coffee. And we have here a compost bucket. there. Compost bucket just with food scraps. And I would put the food in first and then the coffee grounds. Coffee grounds help to keep the smell down. It just smells like coffee. And then also you can put some potting soil on top. Any soil that has microbes in it will help to break down all of the food scraps. Okay, so we'll just cover that back up. I'll put this bowl on top just to weight it down. I like the towel to make a nice good seal so that bugs don't get in. I don't think the bowl necessarily makes a difference, but it's nice. Oops, spraying water. It's nice to be able to just throw things in that bowl. And speaking of which, I had some of these that I forgot to put in, so I'll just put them in the bowl and we'll do those later. Okay, so yeah, now that we have that out of the way, try not to knock over the computer. And I was thinking that mushroom water, every time you dunk it in, is going to get more and more mycelium, more and more spores going on as the mushroom heads develop and produce spores. So that mushroom water can then be used to feed everything, and that mycelium will hopefully inoculate all of the different planters and hopefully help the plants to grow a little bit better. Oh, another thing that I could do right now is just feed a little bit of the mushroom water to the compost bucket, and I don't want to put too much, so I'm going to check the catchment bucket. And the catchment bucket has like no water in it, so I think I'm pretty good to go. I might just use half of that, but just kind of sprinkle it in. The coffee will absorb some. The orange peel that was dried will absorb some. There's some onion and garlic papers, which will absorb some. Any of the vegetation that's still fairly intact will absorb some, so we would be good with that. And since I have it open, I may as well just put this in, right? Okay. Put this back, use that again. So put this over here. I used the box that the mushroom log came in, and I just ripped it up to put at the bottom of the drilled bucket. So this compost bucket is actually two buckets, two 5-gallon buckets. One is a catchment bucket, which will catch any water that leaches out as things decompose, and as you're sprinkling water in. Eventually I'll just start circulating that water into the compost itself, and then maybe take the towel off as it starts to decompose. The smell will start to go away. But yeah, just a little bit of this cut up at the bottom, just so it plugs up the holes. And that box, I think, also has a little bit of spores and mycelium going on, because everywhere that there's this stuff where the mushroom log was touching, it inoculates the cardboard. So at least that's what I think. Okay, the next thing that I had planned was to take a look at the bush beans again. So this is the bush bean that I planted, I think it was yesterday, might have been 2 days ago. Transplanted, I should say. And I decided to plant 2 just because I didn't have that many buckets and I had quite a few bush bean plants. And then I have another 5. I have another 5. So this is the next best looking one. And I did accidentally plant kale along with it. I just forgot to label the cup, so I was like, oh, this is just a prepped cup. So it's going to be an experiment on its own, I guess, because I have some other kale going, which will be the control for this kale. And I don't have other bush beans going, but I can grow a bush bean on its own later. In this particular bucket, I also decided to plant 4 carrots. These were carrots that I thinned out. So I have another planter over here on this table, which is actually out of the shot, which you can't see. But there's a row of radishes and a row of carrots. Those particular carrots, I believe, are 4.5 to 5 inches, which is pretty much the size of the planter, but I'm not expecting to get huge carrots anyway, because A, it's indoor, B, the planter isn't exactly the ideal one. Probably actually a 5-gallon bucket would be ideal for those, just the spacing would be different. I might do it maybe in a spiral pattern or something, I don't know. But that would be an interesting thing to do. Yeah, post in the comments, how you grow certain things, bush beans. If you've grown 2 bush beans in one bucket, how did that work for you? Have you tried it with one? Have you done it with other types of plants? Yeah, that would be interesting to get a conversation about growing techniques started. And then last night, I also transplanted this one. This is just a single, again with the tag-along kale, because I did all 8 cups accidentally, both with a kale and with bush beans. So it's going to be kind of a weird experiment, but I have a single bush bean. Oh, actually, what was I talking about? I said before that I didn't have a single bush bean planted, but I do. I have a single bush bean planted, and I have 2 bush beans planted in one bucket. So just me being forgetful. The other thing that I was going to talk about is this little guy. This guy was planted at the same time as these nice big tall ones. This one, this one, this one. So this one and this one are the runts, and you can see that the bean itself, maybe if I come a little closer. So the bean itself is brown, and it looks to me that maybe it got dried out, or it's just a genetic defect, but you can see that dried out one compared to, say, this one, which is a really nice example. This one was able to utilize the energy in the bean a lot better, right? You can see that the bean has flattened out as it's been drawing energy out of that bean. The bean is nice and green, which means that which means that it's actually photosynthesizing, whereas the brown one is not. So that's part of the reason that the plant is stunted, is because it can't draw energy out of that bean for some reason. The other reason is that those bean cotyledons, the halves of the beans that turn into those two initial leaves, they're brown, so they're not photosynthesizing. So, I think that's going to be the difference. This one here had a really weird thing going on. That bean never split apart. It got dried like this. So it was open down here where the embryo was, enough for the plant to start growing, but it was caught inside. So it was caught like this and it was trying to grow like that. So I just plucked the bean off. I just plucked the bean off and it looks like a peanut, a dried peanut, because there was no photosynthesis going on, and you can see what I mean, that the top of the bean is supposed to split apart, not the bottom of the bean. The bottom of the bean is where it's attached to the plant, but the plant was stuck inside the bean and it couldn't get itself out, so I just had to pluck that off. And so it didn't have its true leaves out until now, right? So the true leaves are coming, they're developing. The true leaves are really stunted, so probably this growing tip is going to have to take over the majority. So this guy is going to have some catching up to do, but I always, I hate throwing out plants. So I'm just going to nurture this guy. Hopefully he'll come back. I'll probably just leave the kale, actually. Why not? But yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess the next thing that I was thinking about talking about were all the different pepper plants that I have. And I mean, pretty much everything in here, was bought at the store, grocery store, and then just started. So like these sweet potatoes, I have another one that's actually going really well, like this whole jar. It's the same size jar, and actually I did them at the same time. I don't know why one is going pretty well, but this one is not, probably because it sprouted earlier, and that one actually has roots. This one doesn't have roots, so I'm trying to get some roots to, well, no, see, those are leaf buds too, not roots. Well, anyway, as I was saying, pretty much everything in here, with the exception of the bush beans and the kale and some, well, actually I shouldn't say everything. Quite a bit of it is from the grocery store. Pineapple, lemon, avocado. Mushrooms don't count because that was an inoculated log. All the potatoes, the dragon fruits, the peppers, the tomatoes, the apples, all of that. Not the cucumbers that keep dying on me. I don't know why. I think the first round of potting mix I made just held too much water, and so they just died. But yeah, pretty much all of the vegetable stuff. Oh, not the corn, but pretty much all the vegetable and fruit stuff in here. It's just stuff I, ate and then took the seeds out of and planted, because all of this indoor stuff is not going to be for producing food. For the most part, I mean, tomatoes will produce indoors, and I have a half-ripened tomato. It's about 7-year-old, a 7-year-old's fist size tomato, and it's ripening up, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, everything is pretty much planted from stuff from the grocery store. Green onion tops. There's a Brussels sprout over there that's not doing so well because it's competing against this huge 2-foot apple tree. Well, I say huge, but that particular apple was planted with a whole bunch of other ones that are only about 6 inches, so I call it huge. It's competing with that apple in a hydroponic bucket. It's an aerated cracky type situation. So no water circulation, just aeration. True cracky would be just a container with no aeration necessarily. But yeah, I was going to talk about peppers. So I have different iterations. Here we have a small, this is true cracky, small pepper plant, and it's getting ready to be topped. So it is starting to send out some new growth off of these nodes, which is good. This is just a really delicate guy. I think it's just, I need to put a little bit of extra fertilizer in there. Maybe it'll start to take off. But it is starting to flower, I'm sorry, not flower, but put out flower buds. So I think I'm gonna get ready to top this guy, so this guy is not gonna get as tall as stuff that's planted. I just think it just didn't get off to that great of a start, and it's kind of playing a little bit of catch up. Yeah. I should have gotten those particular ones out first. I have some peppers growing in some Ziploc sandwich bags, smaller than this. They're like this size, right? Just classic sandwich bag. Filled it with potting soil, poked a whole bunch of holes throughout, especially at the bottom for drainage and a little bit of aeration. Those peppers are about 1 foot tall, and they also need to be topped. But I just don't have any planters right now. I need to go and get more planters. So, the other 2 planters I have for peppers. This guy. This is more of a traditional style. Oh no. What's this guy never got? I guess these 2 flowers never got fertilized. So make sure that you get your flowers fertilized. Anyway, I think also I will go ahead and top this guy after I get this bell pepper. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get the top to plant, but maybe if I give it a couple of nodes. But yeah, it'll have 4 branches out of the bottom here, which will give it nice structure. And then I also have this crazy guy. this is just a total experiment. I wanted to see what would happen if we grew peppers out of strawberry container. This is usually used for strawberries. I don't know if you're going to be able to still see that. But this pepper was topped and it's starting to send out new growth. This pepper was topped and it's starting to send out new growth. Those were the two biggest ones. The only thing about this and growing it indoors is that it's hard to get light on all sides without having a special light setup just for this. But I took one of the tops and I planted it, and 4 of the big leaves self-defoliated because I planted it kind of deep because it was a pretty small top. I think it only had this much stem on it at that point, and it was really, really tiny. So I just stuck it in fairly deep, and it's starting to come. New leaves are starting to grow, which means that it had enough energy left stored to be able to do that and hopefully send out roots, because if it's sending out leaves and no roots, then that's bad news. But I think it's looking pretty good. Got a couple of pea plants that are hanging out with it that are starting to flower. There's a pea down there actually, along with the tomato plant. You know, I just like things growing. They don't necessarily have to be growing in the best and ideal conditions. Sometime down the road, I will start to put them in ideal conditions as we get ready to start putting stuff outside for the growing season. Those will all just be, you know, prepped plants to go outside and to stay outside for the remainder of their lives. These are more to just have fun with, have a little bit of green indoors, to experiment with, to practice techniques, to see if other people's techniques work better. And I think that's the fun thing about gardening. You get that nurturing and caretaking requirement that people need out. You know, that's one way of getting it. Plants don't complain to you. They tell you what they need, kind of, by the way that they're. Yeah, so see this leaf here, this leaf broke, so I'm just gonna pull that. Throw that in the compost bucket. But yeah, they tell you kind of what they need. So like that particular leaf was wilted, and so it was saying, pull me, I don't need you anymore. Yeah, this guy is really going, because he does have his own dedicated container, so. I guess I'll just leave that guy there. He's happy. So this is an orange pepper. I believe 3 of these are orange, 3 of these are red, I want to say. But I guess we'll see. And I'm kind of excited for these peas. I should have planted more, but now we got the bush beans going and the snow pea experiment. So to follow on from the snow pea experiment from yesterday, I went ahead and got another snow pea, and I'm just gonna soak it, and I'm just gonna see if it'll germinate in water. So eventually when that pod starts to break down, I might pull the seeds out, but I think right now the best thing is maybe just give it some light, because like I said, that pod is still photosynthesizing, so hopefully Hopefully that'll do that. Okay, so yeah, I was gonna replant actually those Ziploc peppers in bigger Ziplocs. Maybe I could do that, but I think I'll just continue on, and then maybe I'll come back to that later. So anyway, this is still the only little corn that I have, and I eventually want to transplant this. I heard that corn does not like to be transplanted, so I want to get it before it hits the container. And actually, I probably should start feeding this guy if I can find the fertilizer. Actually, I might pull this guy out from the others because he's kind of over here and get a better light source. Actually, that might be a good light source. It is over by the grow light and the window, so. The corn is a heavy feeder, so I'm gonna get some nutrients to it. This guy, I did some research, and I'm hoping that it only gets to like 4.5 to 5 feet tall, and I think that's what it is. And I think this particular variety of corn, what was it, sweet? Zea maize. So the botanical name is Zea maize.
Zea maize.
Okay, yeah, Zea maize. And it went by Okay, well I can't, oh, here it is. Anyway, these are, it says corn, sweet, silver and gold hybrid. So I looked online for silver and gold hybrid, and it said also the botanical name is Zea maize. So it says here, common name corn, type annual, family Poaceae, native range Mexico, zone 2 to 11, height 4 to 5 feet, spread 1 foot to 2 feet, bloom type, flowers not showy. Sun, full sun, water, medium, maintenance, medium, suggested use, and annual vegetable, tolerate black walnuts. I have no idea what that means, tolerate black walnuts. But anyway, it says, it's supposed to be a pretty good sweet corn, so I'm kind of excited to try that. Hopefully we'll get an ear of corn. These are the bush beans that I planted. Tender green improved. And dwarf blue curl Bates strain kale. Probably can't really see that, but you might be able to go look that up online. Yeah, so eventually I want to get that planted, but I don't have another bucket with holes, I don't think. So yeah, I only drilled out 4. So I will have to drill out another bucket and get that planted. Like I said, I want to get that planted before the roots hit the cup, just because corn does not like transplants. Ooh, okay. This little scraggly guy is a sunflower, and he is starting to bloom. Just a little scraggly guy. I found this guy growing. He was under the bird feeder. It was just a sunflower that dropped down, and when it rains, we have a little drip that comes through the roof to our patio. It's just a sun awning type roof. Just because it's pretty old. I think it's probably like 20 years old, but we just need to replace the panels. The actual structure is still totally fine. It's just some of the panels have started to crack, and they're super dirty because they were, I think, they weren't clear, but they weren't opaque either. Yeah, so I saved him, brought him inside because he had already sprouted a root, and so I pulled the shell off, and the first leaves, which have already fallen off or been cut off, were developing, and he's a little bit dirty because I dropped some dirt on him, but it should be okay. So this guy will hopefully produce sunflower. This particular species of sunflower, I don't think I have that here. Oh, actually no, of course I don't have it there because it was from the bird feed. So I don't know. I think this is that one of those black oil sunflowers, so he's actually really small. Oil sunflower. Two to 5 feet. So the black oil sunflowers aren't as tall as those giant ones. So 2 to 5 feet. Actually, that's about right. That's about right. So he's just under 2 feet. So he is stunted because of the amount of medium that he has. But I have been layering this up. You can see there's the soil that was here, and then layer as this kind of decomposes out. And he has been kind of swinging, so he makes a little hole for himself so that he's not getting too much moisture on his stalk there, because I don't think sunflowers, I don't think you can necessarily do that too much, but layer of soil, and I believe that had some cocoa coir, but I'm not sure. It might have just been plain potting soil, and then layers of coffee, and then layer of soil. Okay, and that other plant that I pulled is just a garlic. These garlics, just from the grocery store again. Actually, that's not true. Some of the garlic is from the grocery store. Some of the garlic is garlic that I grew last season from the grocery store. So it's actually generation 2 of the garlic. And garlic is really cool because it propagates by making more bulbs this way, and also when the wisps, I don't know what they're called, the garlic stalks, those are actually really tasty in stir fry. It's like a really sweet garlicky taste. It's not that really strong, pungent garlicky taste. But anyway, I digress. Those stalks, when they send out their flowers, if those get pollinated, they actually become little tiny baby little garlic cloves. So what happens is that as those develop, they get more and more water, and the stalk gets weaker and weaker, and as the season goes, it droops. And because they're pretty long, it lands about a foot or a foot and a half away from the mother plant. And as those garlic cloves on that bulb dry out, they break apart and then they disperse. And so now you have new little garlic cloves in a foot away from the mother plant, and then those grow, and then they do the same. And that is super cool. So garlic propagates in both those ways, and it propagates super easily. So what I do is I take the super tiny garlic cloves that you don't want to spend all that time chopping up, and plant those, because those will grow. And the only reason that they're small is that they just didn't have enough time to develop, and they were being crowded out by the other bigger cloves in that bulb of garlic. So yeah, that's a way to get garlic. And I think this year might be the year that I don't have to buy garlic again, and that would be awesome. And we eat a lot of garlic. We eat a lot of it. I have a planter out there, and then two separate patches of garlic. And garlic grows really well all year round. You can get multiple crops. Grows well indoors too, I believe, although I haven't tried it. But yeah, I just saw him popped up last night, so I thought add him to the list of things to talk about. Ooh, okay. I will be right back. That was almost really bad. Okay. this here is just an Amazon box. The actual box is it's like 3 inches tall, but it's about 6.5, 7 inches wide, and so the flaps are actually taller than the box. So what I did is I just flipped open the one end of the flaps and taped those. So now you have an inner volume that has an opening at the bottom, right? A larger inner volume, and then it has an opening at the bottom. And then I used the bottom of the solo cup to trace out a diameter, and then I just added about 1/4 inch to that by eye, and cut those out using a very sharp knife. And I used a drill bit. No, actually I didn't. I used needle nose pliers to plunge a hole to get it started. But the purpose of this box is if you live in a cold climate and you want to get something started a month or a couple months ahead, well, you're already using your heater. And if you have forced air heating with the air ducts coming out, on the floor, you can make a box like this. And I was thinking actually that you could put a towel on the inside with one of those like hot water bottles or those hot cold like freezer packs that you can get, and put that sandwiched in the towel in there also, and then put the towel on top of the heat register, and then put the box on top. I just put it directly on top of the heat register, but offset so that there's some of the heat register exposed, and then the floor makes a seal around most of the rest of it. And when the heater is off, the hot air is trapped in here, and as it cools, it'll escape, and there will be some airflow to be able to get into the box, because it's not really sealed up here. These holes are not exactly perfect, and you have that opening at the bottom, so there will be some airflow when the heater vent is off. That makes the perfect conditions for a germination for germination of certain species. So this is a habanero. I don't know if it has the ene or enye. This is a habanero. Those really, really spicy but fruity peppers. And they need warm soil. The soil needs to be, I think, 70 degrees, or between like 65 and 75 degrees, which is perfect because our heater is set to, I think, 67 or 68. But the hot air that comes out is going to be a few degrees above that. Just how things work. Another thing that this works well for is for root promotion. So I was watching a video about fig cuttings, and the video said bottom heat helps to promote roots to grow, and this guy is doing pretty well. So I think that, I just put him in the heater last night, I believe, or 2 nights ago, but he's doing well. So I don't know, we'll keep an eye on it. These are grapefruit seeds. They have not germinated yet, nor has the papaya. The papaya was drying out a little bit yesterday, so I added a little bit of water. So hopefully the papaya will grow. Papaya is also a tropical fruit, so I figured heat would probably be a good option. And I might actually take the fig out and put the papaya back in. I don't know if I mean, this is a hardy fig, so I don't think it needs 70-degree soil. But if it's on top, it'll still get some heat. But this is a really, really cheap way to start seeds. You could get a bigger Amazon box, like I have this box here that I'm using as a stand. You know, waste not, want not, right? So this is just a bucket with a board with a box, and that's sturdy enough. That's sturdy enough to hold up my computer and some other stuff. So save money where you can so that you can use it on more important things, right? So I'm really hoping that these grapefruits will germinate. I don't know, I can't remember. I think there are 4 of them. I think this unmarked cup is also a grapefruit. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm thinking maybe I will. Look around in here. Oh, I don't see anything in here. Oh, there it is. Oh! We have a root! We have rooting! Okay. That's exciting. Okay, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. But there is the grapefruit seed. And there is the root. So eventually this is going to pop through. Okay, I'm happy now. Okay, you probably shouldn't necessarily do that. Don't disturb your... But I have 4 of them, and I only need 1. So if this one's going, the other seeds were just as good. So I'm happy. This guy does feel a little bit dry as I was. So that is one thing when you're starting seeds, is you want to keep them nice and humid, but not soaking. Okay, so I'll go put this guy, I'm going to put this guy over here for now, just so I don't have to go all the way to the other room. So unfortunately, each of those habanero cups were supposed to have 3 habanero seeds in them, I believe. It's either 3 or 2, but only 1 has germinated in each of the 2 cups. So out of 6 seeds, there's only 2 that have germinated, which I'm okay with because I don't need huge amounts of habaneros. And you know, and if that is the case, then I won't have to be as careful transplanting them because there will only be 1 plant, and I can just dump it out and slap it into a container. So that is the habanero, and the germination station. So again, all that is a random cardboard box, some tape to tape up the flaps so that you have 5 sides with an open bottom, or actually 4 sides on the top with an open bottom, some holes cut out for your solo cups. I guess you could put a drip tray. You could probably put a drip tray if you had a tray that was like the exact size, and then you could have holes in the bottom, which would help with aeration for the roots. I might try that. So I think I have a pan that's exactly the right size for that, or a lid. Maybe this lid or this lid, or I could use a different box because I do want to. I think I do want to have another box going. Okay. So another germination surprise. Okay. Any ideas what that is? Now this is something that a lot of hobbyists grow. They're very beautiful and flowing trees, and they are a brilliant red, just an amazing, dark red. So this is a Japanese maple seed that I stratified outside. So this, I believe, is just peat moss. No, I'm sorry, sphagnum moss, sphagnum peat moss. And I believe there are 2 seeds, so there's one here and one here. The second seed has not come up yet, and there actually might be more. It might be a ring plus, like this one. This might be one here too. But this is a Japanese maple. And so what I did is, since this container is so shallow and it doesn't have any holes at the bottom, I moistened the material, and then I put saran wrap on top, but I put it draping, and it was sitting on a 2x4, and so that saran wrap was draping over that 2x4, so that water would not find its way in here and flood this. If it gets flooded, then you're not gonna be very happy because your seeds are gonna drown. But you can see that the root is here on the bottom. I might wait to see if there are others that join this guy, and I might actually get some water going. Okay, I'll put the lid back on. Get them back into the light. I did have another one here, and I do not see any roots at the bottom, and I don't see anything poking out at the top yet. So hopefully this guy will also get going. Then put the lid back on that so that I don't spill. Yeah, okay. So that was the Japanese maple. That was an awesome surprise. I saw that last night and I was like, what? I was so happy because that literally took months to happen. So I have a Japanese maple out here that came with the house. That's really, really beautiful, and it produced some seeds. So I took those seeds and I just cut off the wing, the wing that makes it spiral down. You just cut that off. And at first I tried to pry open that casing, but I don't recommend that because you're just going to lose a whole bunch of seeds that way. Because I wasn't able to do it even after I soaked it, so that was a no-go. But basically, what I did was I just left it outside, and because those seeds need to be stratified, and stratified just means freezing and thawing, freezing and thawing. It's what it's what cues the seed into thinking, oh, okay, it's spring now, right? It's gone through that freezing, thawing, and then now it's entering into a period of no thawing, no freezing overnight, and then it's like, oh, it's spring, so it's popping up. So hopefully there will be more on its way. I also planted a whole bunch of them outside, just in a little patch of garden. I was putting up a trellis / sunshades wall outside, and I had to dig out an area to put the cement foot, and so I dug that really deep, put the cement foot pretty deep, and then used one of those pure blocks with the attachment already pre-sunk into that pure block, and then cemented that pure block into the cement, filled up the rest, so there's about a foot. So basically it's a foot planter now. And so, but it has good drainage also. And I sowed the Japanese maple seeds, and what I did with those ones is I just put the fin, the wing pointing up, so I know where they are, and I was thinking that hopefully those won't disintegrate over the winter, and I don't think they have, so I know where the rows are, and I know what kind of maple they are based on the length. So I did collect some different kind of maple from my parents' house, one that has a nice central stalk, but then nice thin branching, and it doesn't get very big. And I'm hoping that the offspring of that parent plant will be similar to that, because I really love that plant. It's a wonderful shade tree, but it's a dappled shade, so that you can have some good things growing underneath it. We have a tree out there that really is interrupting the power lines. So every year, and it's a really fast growing tree. Like as soon as you cut it, it's just like boom, sending out 50, like literally 50 shoots every time you cut it. So I want to get rid of that tree. So cut that down, drill it out, and use it as a nurse stump, hopefully, to get the maple going, the shade maple. And under that, there are some rhododendrons, which would start to really get going, because the other tree, there's too much shade. But yeah, those rhodies will really go and block out the neighbors a little bit more. And then under that would be a perfect place for very partial sun to shaded plant section. So good for lettuces and other more delicate plants that don't want direct sun, where indirect sun is fine. And it doesn't need to be very high yielding because it's in the front yard. So probably less yield is better, just so they don't have to be in the front yard as much maintaining them. Okay, the next thing I was going to talk about is this guy. Now you might not recognize this guy. But if I bring it closer, you definitely will know what this is. It is a coconut, and it's in a bag of water. And why is it in a bag of water, you say? Well, because coconuts are really, 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 really big seeds. So this guy, to get it started, you want to soak it for 3 or 4 days. So I got this guy in water yesterday. I'm sorry, 2 days ago. 2 days ago? I can't even remember. I'll have to go back and check my notes. But I think tomorrow is the day. It might be tomorrow or the next day, but tomorrow might be the day to take this guy out. And I wrote on here embryo because there's a bump here. And I'm thinking that is the embryo. I'm thinking that's where the embryo is. So I wrote embryo there just to see if further down the road we can determine whether that is the embryo or not. This is just an old strawberry pint, I believe, or pound box. Yeah, and that's just to keep it from rolling around and keep this part on top, and the string is just because otherwise it would just be too floppy. It keeps it upright, and it keeps the water totally, the coconut totally submerged in the water. So another day or two on that, and we will plant it. And coconuts grow really, 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 really slowly, so there will be a lot of time between updates on that guy. I guess we could also do I'll also do an update on the dragon fruit seeds. These germinated in about 7 to 10 days. This one is about to shed its seed shell. This, I believe I planted 6 cups each with 3 dragon fruit seeds. So that's 18 potential dragon fruit seeds. There's 3 in this one. 4, 5. 6, 7. 7. They're kind of hard to see because they're black seeds. So there are 7 of them that are germinated out of 18. And I heard that dragon fruit is actually easier to grow from cuttings. So we'll get these guys going, and then hopefully we'll get some cuttings. But I was thinking that it would have been nice to have quite a few going, because I think they grow well in fairly small containers for quite a while. And that's what I got. I got a lot of small containers, right? Just not a lot of these things. So anyway, hopefully we'll get those going and separated out. Okay. I guess, are there any other germination surprises to talk about? I feel like there was another one. I feel like there was another thing that germinated that I was excited about. But anyway, the rice is going. This one guy has grown about a half an inch, the others maybe a quarter inch. So I'm hoping that this 8th one that I accidentally buried will find its way, and then we'll have 8. And then still need to plant out some of these guys that have started to send out roots. One of them has a root. A couple of them have half-inch roots already, so that would be a good thing to plant out. Anything else that has germinated? I have one rosemary. I sprinkled a whole bunch of rosemary seeds on a 6-inch pot. And one. I also made a whole bunch of cuttings off of this from small trimmings that I didn't expect to take. And I think 1 or 2 of them have taken. I'm hoping these hardy kiwi will come back. I might have to take another cutting. They started putting out leaves, and then something happened, and then they died off. Ooh, that pear is starting to take off. It's got 3 new little bright green leaves. I think that Japanese maple cutting that's in this pot over here. I feel like it is actually starting to sprout new leaves. It is! It is! Awesome. Okay. So those leaf buds are starting to produce now. This one right here especially, and I have one right there that is going also. So that is awesome. That is really awesome. I think I'll give this guy a little water, keep him going. Over here because it's easier to get to, and now he'll have a little bit of window sun as well. Okay. The other thing, oh yeah, okay. This is the Douglas fir cone that I put in the water yesterday. I've seen people make YouTube videos of sprouting these just whole, so I wanted to try. I also pulled out a few seeds and I'm soaking them. I don't know if these need to be stratified, but I don't think so. And then this is really cool. It has made a blood red pine cone tea, and I don't know what kind of cone this is, so if you guys know what kind of cone that is, definitely write that into the description or put your best guess. But it has this, it's like if you put blood in water, it really does look like that. I don't, like in the movies or something, right? But I got that cone going. And I figured that I would put 1/3 of each cone submerged so that any water that's wicked up will activate the seeds in whichever layer needs it, or whichever layer isn't drowned but isn't completely exposed to air and dry. And then also I have some of these going. It's interesting that this bigger cone, it has a different strategy. It's a bigger cone, smaller seeds. This is a smaller cone, slightly bigger seeds. The overall size of these seeds, I would say, are about 4, maybe 5 times the size. Maybe the biggest ones maybe are 6 times compared to the smallest viable in those. But I thought, I think that's kind of cool too. Different trees, different dispersal strategies. But yeah, I think. No, I'm not exactly sure if I had anything else. So yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe I will do the transplant if I can work my way to get over to those peppers. And I think I'll continue the ones in plastic bags. I'll continue those in plastic bags. And this is a really nice big one. So what size is this? I don't know if I want to do this one as a pointer actually. I think I'll keep this one as it was. I was using it to cover the ginger that I planted. No activity other than the ginger is nice and plump. It's not rotting, so that's a good sign. I just had it like this, make a little bit of a greenhouse effect. Ooh, okay. This, I believe, is more rice. I don't know what that is, some fuzzy stuff. Yeah, I think this is more rice. No, it says garlic. Then why is there rice? I'm confused. Is that garlic or is that rice? Okay, that is garlic. This is the smaller of the garlic bulbs. There were 2 kinds of garlic. Nice big white bulbs, and then these bulbs that were smaller but have a more intense garlicky taste. They kind of have this purpley tinge to the skin and to a little bit to the flesh also, outside of the flesh. So I'll give these a little bit more water. Maybe it'll help activate, because these ones that were under the plastic I didn't water as frequently, and they were kind of pushed back there, so I was kind of ignoring them. Planted some pumpkin seeds. They haven't come up yet. Here's another white potato that has poked itself up, along with this one that poked itself up yesterday. I topped off this planter that also has some white potatoes going in it. I'm just gonna try different planting methods and different design schemes. I just wanna play around with things and see how they work. But yeah. Before I got sidetracked, I was gonna try to work my way back here. Yeah, so this this area is only 9 foot by 10 foot, and so 10 feet that way, 9 feet this way. So it's a pretty small growing space for this many darn plants. So I'm not gonna do this. I really need to fill this guy up. This is being loud. Oh no. Be nice, apple tree. Okay. Oh yeah, you can see here we got lots and lots of roots. So yeah, it's definitely time to transplant these guys. Luckily he came out pretty nicely because I had them wired together. Here's some working space. Put your little corn buddy over here for now. Little garlic buddy. So maybe I will go with gallon bags. What is it? Go get some. Okay, so basically I think I'm going to do it exactly the same, just fill this up with dirt, get these guys out of these bags and into these bags, and then tie them together, but I'm going to need this bigger catchment for that to happen. I don't know where to work. So I can work here. I can get the mushroom. Maybe that would be it? shoot. Gosh darn it. Ah. Saw the blood water. Need a bigger grow room. That was certainly entertaining. At least I did that after I showed you guys the cool red stuff that was happening. And of course I spilled that all over the papaya seeds, so. Over there this time. Anyway, will this work or not? Kinda. That's better. So the best way to do this is to fill the bag first and then use a skewer to poke holes in the bottom. I'm gonna zip these up for now. Two, we'll get our third one, then we'll get some wire. I might do 2 rows of wire this time just because the bags are bigger. really need to figure out a better working area. Eventually, I do have a table under here. I need to get that cleared out so that I have better storage under this table, and then on top of the table would be used for germinating seeds, because obviously they don't need any light. Then all of the light can be above this table. I need to get some new lights, more lights. All this area here could have more lights, and then under this table even has lights. So okay, so I will be right back. I need to go get some wire to get that, and I think that's inside, so hopefully. Okay. Wire. And if you don't have wire, you can use duct tape. So this particular wire is just copper wire that is coated as red and white, and that is because it's usually used for electrical purposes. And I think I might do a triangle shape on this one. Yeah, I think that will be a good shape. So because we're doing 2 rows, just need 2 wires. Just use some wire cutters. This stuff's pretty thin, so you could actually probably get away with a heavy pair of kitchen shears. Untwist those, throw one of them on the ground because you don't have 2 hands. We'll do the bottom one first, I guess. Because why not? Pull pretty tight so that it grips. And just twist. To wrap it around on itself, just to get the wires out of the way and to hold on better. your second wire, and you may as well do it at the same spot. What I mean by the same spot is the same side. Get it nice and tight, because this is what's going to hold everything together. And so if you don't have it nice and tight here, it's not going to stay. And actually, I'll deal with those later. Not that important. Just as long as it's secure. Okay. Now we can pop these open. And actually, maybe we should have popped them open to begin with, but well, too late now. Okay. Now, see, it's all going to be together. Make some holes down here, which will also help give it some form, because we don't want these bags to be so upright. We want them to be nice and poofy, so that plants have nice places to go and isn't just cramped in there. Okay, so now I can undo this one. Actually, this side is better. So yeah, this one I didn't wrap around itself. I did on the other side, and I'll show you why in just a second. So if you're just going to use one wire and then you have it in the double, then you can just marry the wires together. That's what I did here. And then you can just twist these ones just like that, and then it's easier to get out. The bigger ones you can pretty much leave, because this is going to be the end growing size for these particular ones. I think these big bags would work really, really, really well for green onions. You could have probably like, fill it up all the way, like just under. Make sure that it's fairly compact so that it's not flopping all over the place. You might, if you were going to do that, then you might want to duct tape it together more, like here. Actually, I might do that anyway. That might be a good idea. There, yeah, that's a good idea, because then that gives it a little bit better form. And actually, what's nice about Ziplocs is that duct tape sticks to it, but it's peelable. Okay, now that we got this taped, it has a little bit more form to it. And I'm not suggesting that you do this. I'm not telling you that you have to do this. I'm experimenting. I'm having fun. So, I guess I could duct tape like that, and like that, but I'm gonna leave it as it is right now. Just get on with it. Okay, kind of reform it again so that things have its shape. That is actually pretty darn nice, and I believe that's gonna fit nicely in here. So let's see if I'm right about that. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is pretty awesome. Pretty darn cool. Okay, so yeah, 3-gallon Ziplocs fit nicely in a BMW logo shape, right? That piece, that kind of shape. And it fits in a 12-inch tray, which is what fits well on the Home Depot buckets too. So that is very, very nice. So now we have the 3 holes, and it's about the same height as these bags here. Now that we have them, I can just peel these apart one by one, make those stand up, okay? And I'm just gonna kind of try to tease this out of the bag. Trying to be as careful as I can with any roots that have developed. But it should, with some patience. Oh yeah, see, even the roots that were coming out of those little holes at the side of the bag, they are coming out. And so this was a mix of those hydroponic pebbles. Okay, so this is a little bit tall, so what I'm going to do is move some of this dirt into one of the adjacent bags. This is why we didn't fill it up all the way. Okay, take that, put it in there. Okay, perfect. This part's right at that rim, and with just enough to be able to slowly get this stuff in. This is kind of messy. That's the only thing about doing things inside, is that you got to be a little bit more careful, unless you want to spend all your time cleaning or being yelled at for making messes. But I have always been a fairly messy person, and I'm okay with messes, but other people are not. I'm just going to take off those 2 first leaves. Those were just the initial leaves that came out, and now that it's fairly established, you don't really need them, so. And I'm not going to disturb the already existing root system too much. Just kind of, hopefully at least. I don't know if you saw on that particular plant, I'll try to show you on these ones, but there are root starts that kind of climb up that stalk there, at least for a little bit, until that first kind of node where that those first leaves were. You can keep burying it up to that point, and those roots will start to grow and give you more absorption. But don't go too crazy, because you do need to have, those roots also need to have some air, because those are the ones that get the air more readily, especially when the plant has just been watered. Okay, so I will just do it up to the rim and then tap down the part closest to the rim to make a little slope, so that we don't have dirt falling out every time we move it, but we also have kind of the maximum amount of soil that we can have in one given bag without making too much of a mess when we're moving it around and showing it off and getting it into a different and better location for light and all those different things that you have to do with your plants. With and for your plants, I should say. Okay. So I'll turn this, and this looks like it's probably a good level to do it. And I guess we don't want to put too much, because then one bag will have a lot more than the other. And we don't want that either. Okay, so this second one, I'll kind of show you what I mean by those roots. And you can see that this guy's pretty floppy, so this is going to be good anyway to do. But if you can see in there, you can see those little nubs right there. Those little nubs in this part here up until this part, and maybe a little bit higher, I'm not sure. And it might, and it actually, it probably does go up higher, because you can top it and plant the tops. But you know, so definitely where the nodes come out. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do the same thing that I did with the other one. This one happens to have more clay pebbles, it feels like, so I hope this is going to be as easy to get out as the last one. It's the corners that I'm worried about. But that'll be okay. But I feel like all these clay pebbles at the bottom are going to rush out. Called it. Sorry, I kind of get lost in thought when I'm doing this kind of thing. It's so relaxing to have something simple to do, take your mind off of stresses of the day and things that you need to get done, and just kind of be free with getting messy and having things be unstructured and but also like gardening it has an end result, but it's continuous, especially indoor gardening. And it's just a nice feeling to have something to take care of, something to grow, something to build, something to escape to, something that's not harmful or bad or putting other people down. Okay. So actually, because I was kind of lost in thought, I was not paying attention, and I want to make sure that this one doesn't get too taken over. A little bit more soil in here because this one had a lot taken out of it from putting the other ones in. So this one here had like the red rock at the bottom of the bag. This one and this one, I believe, just have clay pellets. So that is one difference between the three bags. It's like that red volcanic rock that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever for like $20 a bag or something. I don't know. Might not even be $20. Something tickling my neck. This is just pretty fiddly work. That's the one thing about doing things inside. Is that unless you want a giant mess, take your time. And then I guess an advantage of this particular planter is low cost. Everyone has access. You probably have them already. So it still stands up on its own. Downside is that it's not very durable. Or clear. So I guess, actually I was thinking that maybe I could get some brown paper bag, like a grocery store paper bag, and just do a lining on the outside. I might do that. So this grow lab is just part of our living room. Our living room is in an L shape, and then this part goes to the kitchen, as you've probably seen. That door behind me. But it just makes a nice little gardening area because there's a window here that's south facing, but there's also a patio that has covering to it. It's one of those clear corrugated coverings. Oh wow, I made a mess. Too bad. Too bad. Yep, and then I guess the benefit to this design is that you can easily tie these to each other. I think I would at least do that, if not just need some skewers. Get the 3 that we need. This one's standing up pretty well, so I might not do that. This one, I'll help out. And this one I'll help out. I'll probably stake that one also, but I'm going to use this now to make some holes. And I was thinking that I'll do the holes in here, so under the wires. So I guess we'll start with the red, between the red and the white. And you can just be pretty carefree about these. And actually, if I was thinking, I would have done the holes before, when I had zipped up the bags, but not yet done the wire, because now obviously I can't get into there, but it's not, I guess, as important because those bags are already touching each other anyway. But there probably would have been some benefit. Because you could see that those roots were poking through the holes. The roots were looking for the next place to go. But the benefit is that it air prunes it. Okay, so now I got to do the bottom, which was again, I did this out of order, so you guys should be smarter than me and not do that. That actually worked out pretty well, so I'm not too worried. Because you can kind of get up in the middle there and hook the other bags from this angle and then turn it around and do the other angles as you can do it. Okay, so again, be smarter than me and do this before you attach them together with the wire. But, you know, just kind of do it halfway up the bag. And then a lot on the bottom. And then, because we want these to be pretty well drained. But don't do too many or else you're going to rip the bag when you move it. So 3 gallons of soil is actually pretty good. Okay, and then while I'm here, fertilize. Fertilize/water in. always one of those things that it's easy to overdo, but it's so much fun. I mean, that's why we have plants, is to take care of them, and part of taking care of them is watering, and it's easy to over take care of things, right? Because you, like, if you've had a dog or something, you always want to give them treats, but the thing about a treat is that it's supposed to be a treat, not an everyday thing, and so over treating is like over watering, but over watering is deadly for plants, so. It does look like, at least on this one, see this one is flopping over a lot, it's because it doesn't have enough soil on this edge here, so. But hopefully these guys will take off now because they were kind of confined. And also, it looks like here this one guy is starting to try to put out a pepper. I might end up topping these guys. And then putting the tops back in those bags, the smaller bags, and get those to grow, and then replant them in bigger bags, and then top them and keep on going. Okay, so that should be all three. They will need more water, but I think for now that's okay. And I think for now I'll just put it here because I don't know where else to put it. Again, I'm running out of room for everything. It's avocado pit. So I have one cucumber that survived. I don't know how this guy survived where the other ones failed. So this is one of the garden sweets, and it was the garden sweets that kept dying on me. So hopefully, this one feels a little bit drier. So I'm wondering if these guys just, because I think the potting mix was just an extra wet mix. So I'm just not going to water that guy. Let's see what happens with him. There we go with that. I'm looking for a string. I had some string and then I lost it. I've been looking for it. And I'm sure I just put it some silly, stupid, random place, but I guess until then I'll just use some wire. And actually wire might be easier overall. Loop. some blue tape, or your favorite kind of tape. I love this 3M blue tape. That is my favorite. So useful. Even more useful than duct tape. Ah, there I said it. Wonder if I'll get angry comments for that. No, duct tape is more useful. No, blue tape is more useful. So hopefully that guy will stand up a little straighter. We'll do same thing with this guy here. And some more blue tape. I'm going to do a second one on that one because that one is kind of leaning more at the top than at the bottom. And we'll also put it that way. Okay, here we go. There's the last plant. Hopefully that guy will stand up. Okay, got those transplanted finally. I've been putting that off, so that is nice. Okay, and then beyond that, oh yeah, there's the last thing that I was gonna talk about were these paper whites. These are just regular old paper whites, the kind that you get usually around the holidays for in December. planted these out. I went ahead and I actually fed them. The roots are coming out the bottom. And I did pollinate these. There were two bulbs that flowered, so I pollinated them. But I think I only got one viable seed, and when I was checking to see if the seed was viable, I think I might have popped it. So I don't even know if that seed is going to be viable. I haven't checked the bulbs yet to see if they put out any propagations that way. It was only planted in coconut coir and then I fed it with some liquid plant food, but I don't think it's been in there long enough for it to have developed. I might actually go ahead and transplant those now that the roots are coming out the bottom. But what I did go ahead and do is I put one unpeeled pod without the flower, one of the biggest ones that I thought might have had a chance to be germinated, and I buried that and see if that will grow. In the center, so they're in a line. I should have planted them in a triangle, but oh well. In the center, there's one that, I'm sorry, that's the one I was talking about. That's the one that I might have popped. That's in the center, and it's peeled out of the pod, which is connected to the flower. There's one pod that I buried without the flower, just by itself a little bit, and then there's one that I buried with the flower. So what I think happens with these, and I could be wrong, but what I think happens with these and what happens with most bulbs is at the end of the season, those stalks dry out and they just go like this, boom. And that's where the new bulb seed, or whatever thing is up here, that's when that gets planted, is when that happens. So I'm pretty sure that these are all just done for because everything is all dried up. So also this stalk got knocked, and so it's split in half, so some of these flowers probably just dried up because of that and never had a chance. So I'm kind of disappointed. I was hoping that more of those would germinate, but these we'll just hold on to those. Probably get some more of those next Christmas from people. But yeah, that's all that I really had on the docket today. I don't know how long the stream has been going for. 2 hours and 21 minutes. Yeah, so I think that's a good place to stop. And I hope you join me tomorrow for episode 6.